All right, let's see. Here we go. Sure. All right. All right, all right, all right. Let's go here. All right. We are live now. All right, let's see. So today is going to be women who inspire who inspired the creation of this place. The visuals will be on YouTube, so if you want to, I guess, follow along, it'll be on YouTube. But if not, you'll just kind of hear me and see me here. So I kind of put together a little thumbnail showcasing all the different women that I've shown on the little TikToks. But with that, the thing, it's not all the women. So to be very clear, it's not all the women that inspired this place. It's just a handful of those women related to this space, just to kind of get us started, kind of get us rolling. Get our little intro in there. So for this one, I have 2, 4, 6, 7 women listed here so far, and we're just gonna kind of go through them. Long hair with Mary. She is the starter here mainly because she is the foundation of so many different organizations, and she comes from a wealthy background that you see very frequently. So there's no way you were going to be able to create this many organizations without some semblance of financial backing. And that's kind of a huge piece. And then we get that very iconic line, which is "Lifting us, we climb," which is the mantra of one of the many organizations that she founded. And that's kind of where she comes in. I was very fortunate to be able to find a picture of all the different women that were a part of the founding of a lot of these organizations. It is on YouTube if you're not watching. And it's just all the variety of women that some are listed, like Mary Bethune is in that picture as well. I'm trying to think where she's sitting or standing. I think she's standing in the back, second row. But it's a very powerful image of just how many women of that time, again, women didn't have rights, women couldn't vote, all of those great things. And they come together for this very beautiful picture moment, the organizations themselves. So that's kind of why she finds herself here. Then we factor in, I don't know if you've read that book, Black Fortunes, where it tells you, the different Black millionaires at a time in which before, I think the Reconstruction, if I'm not mistaken, is but how the book takes place, or around Reconstruction, something in that time frame. And she kind of comes up related to her husband, but it's not all about her. She just kind of mentioned because they're really more focused on the husband in that book. So that's kind of how she finds her way on this list. You can't talk about influential women in club spaces without mentioning her. So that's kind of where she comes in. I'm on the wrong screen. The next, Nettie, and I guess Nanny. I think Nanny. I think with how you pronounce that. She's the one who created the first school that was black owned, operated in the North. And that's how she finds her way on this list, because it was actually funded by Black folks at a time in which you had the Booker T. Washingtons, the people that we're dealing with today that say Black people can't do certain things. And she proved them wrong in doing that. And that's how she finds her way on this list at a time in which Black women were expected to not do very much. Here she is coming with this whole project and successfully doing it. Now, granted, just like a lot of women on this list, a lot of the things that they created are no longer in existence today, and that's unfortunate. Some things are, but others are not, and that's unfortunate. But for me, she finds her way on this list. If you're watching it on YouTube, you will see this very beautiful picture I was able to find in an archive that is her students all in dresses, because that's the time period that they're living in. I don't want to say matrilineal dresses, but dresses that reflect the time, if you will. And it's a very basic classroom. It's a very basic classroom. Like, it doesn't even look like there's enough desks in the room for the girls, but there's definitely enough chairs and for them to be there. And that's how she finds her way on this list. It's just, I find it very incredible what Black women were able to do for the times in which they were living. It's unfortunate that a lot of these things that were being created are no longer in existence for me. I think that's the really sad part about it all, is how much of it is no longer in existence. That's the part that really gets me as you know, pour over this history, especially when you first discovered these women and the things that they were doing. That's probably the one piece that is constant in the back of my mind as I create this space is what am I doing to keep this going after we've started? I think that's the biggest thing that like continues to echo with me with each one of these women that you will hear about. It's not enough to just create something. It's what are you creating that will live on in perpetuity long after your lifespan. So that's how she finds her way on this list because I think that's very fascinating that she was able to crowdsource and crowdfund something at a time in which again there is no GoFundMe. Like this is way back when all you had was the phone, the radio. Television didn't even exist during this time period. So how were you getting this many women connected? I think would be the big one there. Now this is a woman. Um, when I first learned that she was the one who, you know, term that I don't want to say I don't think she ever copyrighted or trademarked the phrase "Black is beautiful," but she is definitely one of the first women we saw do this beyond like what's his face Marcus Garvey, like with that whole movement with him. But like as far as in a space where we actually get to see Black beauties that's coming from Black women ourselves, if you will. So Ophelia is a heavy hitter on this list for me, and she's the reason why she's on the list is not only doing the modeling agency for Black women to see their beauty, but then you also have to factor in the big piece for me is the finishing school. The fact that we've lost so many of these spaces for Black girls and women to commingle and to share things that they know that's outside of your family, and you get to share all of this, shared knowledge is kind of missing. Now it is beautiful that her family were able to, keep this thing going up until this century, if you will. But at the same time, it's like what happened there? Like no one who went through that finishing school decided to, pick it up. That's the part that really gets me. It's like out of the probably hundreds, if not thousands and tens of thousands of women that they trained throughout the years, no one wanted to continue it. That part is crazy to me. But if you're watching it on YouTube, I do have her picture up and then one of the pictures of the girls in a class, and they have like the book on their head. So, but if you've seen the TikTok, you've seen this picture as well. But the visuals on YouTube, I find it very fascinating, and it inspires this place because when I think about the group that we're creating here, it's not enough to just have a social piece to this. The other huge piece to this is what are we giving to the girls? What like why would they even waste time being here? So what refinement, what elegance, what all of those things are we bringing that the girls would need as well? I think that's the biggest thing for me. It's like what are we bringing to the table for them that would be something similar, something similar to like a finishing school. So those are the things that you kind of want to have in your mind of like what is your training, what is your background that you could be bringing to this space. As I think about myself, it's like what am I bringing to this space as well? That would be very beneficial to the girls. If you notice on this channel, I've never had a bonnet on. Like, not saying I don't wear a bonnet, but like it's one of those is how you're presenting yourself. Like, yes, you'll see me and my twists and different things of that nature because I want you to know that I do wear my hair natural. I'm not afraid of being in my natural state either. But again, my natural state doesn't necessarily have to be, unkept, if you will. And I think that's something else we're missing. And I think that's a huge piece that goes with why people, not even people, why Black women don't really want to wear their natural hair anymore. Or, we see a lot of Black women talking about, we got to get back to hair crack and relaxers and all of that great stuff. But for me, I really live in a space where we got to get back to the Ophelias of embracing our beauty, whatever that may look like. Now, granted, she is mulatto. Like we can't lie to ourselves there. She was mulatto. She was mixed. So we're not talking about a full-on Black woman with the full-on features and the full-on, 4C or 3C hair. But at the same time, we're still talking about someone even in that mixed race hybrid state still found the beauty, still, aligned herself with Black women and uplifted our beauty at the same time. So the Ophelia is a heavy hitter in this space for me. It is a woman that very much inspires a lot of things that will be happening here as well. To Annie, just an OG. Now this is just a woman that, whew, Without her, I don't know if we would really even have the beauty sector we have for Black women right now. I don't even know if that would even exist without her, for being quite frank. She is absolutely credited for that. You'll see in the quotes on the post that I made of the different quotes people have made about her and her industry and what she's done. Um, but the big thing here for me is we got to get back to some semblance of that, where we are not just creating products for product's sake, but we are creating brands and things that are deeply associated with us. And again, things I think about with this space. I know a lot of you are very entrepreneurial out there, and I know you're doing incredible things on your own right now and in this space, because I see some of you, especially some of you that are following me right now. It's like, I know if you're in this space, are you thinking about how strong your brand will be in that beauty space? That it's something that takes on a whole different light, that is just beyond just you trying to make a living right now, but more of something that's going to outlive you, something to the effect of like a L'Oreal or something to that effect, or Coco Chanel or whatever. Not saying you're going to do that today. I didn't say that, but I'm just saying Annie really puts that in perspective for me. Even in terms of this space, like, we are going to be doing so much here as far as influence. When we have to think about other organizations that exist, it's like there's no way that you're going to just kind of meander in the background. Like, I don't see this as secret, and I've said this a couple times. I don't see this as a secret club. Definitely there's going to be secrets for us that will be in here, but for the most part, this is something that you see the visibility of this club. This is where you think about like the junior leagues and things of that nature, where they are very visible. They not only are doing events, but they also have buildings and spaces and taking up spaces. And that's kind of where we think about Annie, and how many spaces and places she took up with our beauty, and to between ads, physical places, physical buildings. So that's kind of where her inspiration comes from me, who created the Camp Founder Girls. Now, this one was very interesting. I learned about this maybe, I don't know, maybe like a few years ago, when it was like blowing up during the pandemic, because the camp came back in 2019. And then the pandemic happened, and then they were still trying to figure out what they were going to do. And that's kind of when I discovered the camp. I didn't know about the 1924 founding or anything like that. So to discover it this later, it's like, wow, the fact that the camp was closed for so many years because they either couldn't figure it. It's very unclear based off what I've read about the camp, of when the original owner and creator died to when no one picking up the stick, picking up the torch to move it forward. But regardless of what happens, the camp is back. They're still trying to figure out how to have building, have an actual piece of land again for it again. But this is very interesting to me because, first off, I didn't even know Black camps existed. As someone who worked at a summer camp in New Hampshire when I was in college, I didn't even know Black camps existed, to be honest. And I don't mean that in like, oh, well, she's just uncultured. I mean in the sense of like actually owning land for the camp, actually having a long history and standing behind that camp, versus a lot of these like day camps or summers, temporary summer camps that they do. Not even to the level of Girl Scouts, because Girl Scouts do actually own some of these campgrounds that they're doing these camps at. But to know that there were black summer camps that existed, and they didn't really have prominence or were active in the time in which I would have been a child to go to camp, is very interesting to me. And that's kind of where this comes from. It's like, what are we necessarily doing for the kids? Now, granted, this is an adult-oriented organization, social club, but at the same time, what are we going to be doing for the children with the space that we're creating here? Now, I'm not saying we're we're going to shove off and start a camp or anything like that, but what are we going to be doing for the kids? Again, as someone who worked at a summer camp in college, that was a very expensive summer camp, mind you. This was a summer camp that was like, I think, $8,000 for a 6-week session. It was something ridiculous. And I'm not saying what we're going to do has to be that, expensive and that high of a price point. But what I am saying is it gets the wheels turning on what we're going to be doing for the kids. Because BET actually did with Queen Latifah, the Queen Collection, where they did a little series, a little episode, little documentary style episode of this camp and what it is now, and how is it going, and some of the more historical figures of this camp that are still alive, like older campers and things of that nature. That for me, it really gets the wheels turning on what are we going to be doing for the kids. And that could be a variety of things. Variety of things. We don't know what that's going to be yet. But perspective for me and get the wheels turning on what we're going to be doing for the kids. Next one is Mary Beth. Now this one's a huge one for me. This is a particular woman that really got my wheels turning on all of the things that she did in her lifetime, times in which she was living, right? You got to follow that. And all of the things she was able to achieve in it. The other book that really puts us in, well, there's several books that I've read on her, but one of the one that I guess is more fictional but still fun to read was the First Ladies, which also includes Eleanor Roosevelt, one of her good friends. We get some of the behind the scenes of her time in the White House and the time she spent with Eleanor in and out of the White House and all of their different adventures. Now, granted, some of these are dramatized. You got to keep that in mind. Some of these are dramatized, mainly because you only know so much. Like, you only know what they wrote in a journal. I think the most shocking part about that book was the lesbian letters. I learned about that. I didn't even know that was a thing. And all of my research on Eleanor Roosevelt throughout my history classes, I don't think that ever came up. But I digress on that point. Back to Mary. For me, between the Bethune Beach, that was for Jim Crow, so Black people could go to the beach because of segregation, and to know that it's not a Black beach in 2025 is crazy. Like, what happened there? But according to some of the books I've read and some of my research on it was mainly because they couldn't find the funding and get enough Black people who could afford to live and maintain businesses in that area. And that's kind of where it kind of faltered. But at the same time, that's unfortunate that had to happen to those particular spaces. The other part is obviously the school. The school is a big one because this university still exists. Obviously, the name has slightly changed through the years, but her university still exists. Her organization still exists to some degree. Now, have they lost prominence from during her time? Absolutely. But are they still important? Also, absolutely. So I think for me, this is not a character, but this is a particular woman, a prominent figure that has just warped my brain. Again, some of the books I've read, some of the stuff that I've researched, it's like, wow, this is another woman that, for me, has shown me that I could do this thing that I want to do, and everywhere else that we're going to go with this thing. So that would be one. The other part, I think they're Josephine. Oof, this is a big one. This one's a big one for me because you have to go back to the times in which she's living to start a national newspaper by and for Black women, sharing the good word and telling people what's going on. It's the equivalent of all of this investigative journalism that we are seeing across, social media itself. But imagine back in a time where newspapers is the TikTok. It's like, and women found the time. Now, granted, the women's era only lasted a few years. It didn't go on in prominence forever, but it definitely is noted as the first. So we have to definitely give it credit where credit is due. And it shows us the way of what women could do, no matter the circumstances, no matter they knew how to read and write in the times that they were writing this newspaper. Like, really think about that. How many women, back that up, women, Black people, like all of these things, how many people could read or write in that time to be able to even read the women's era, the newspaper itself? That's the part that really gets me. But they still found people that were in the room to be able to read this newspaper to them, to know the information, to help them learn how to read it, all of that great stuff. So for me, that's why Josephine St. Pierre Ruffing is on this list and why she's even here. Because that is the beginning of women realizing that they can do these things, and to see these things is one thing it's one thing to want to do something or inspire to do something. It's a whole nother thing when you can actually see it being done. That's every woman on this list has shown me that what I want to do, where I'm striving for, existed at some point and probably still exists currently. And it is absolutely able to be done. So that's why Josephine finds link. So out of all these women, so far I only have what 2, 4, 6, 7, and then I included some current women on some of the posts I did. Like I did one where she's revitalized a country, the first Black country club. I put her on that list because that's just incredible. First off, I didn't even know Black people own country clubs. That's the other part. Like we know they own clubhouses and some of these like private spaces, but to know that they put everything together: the tennis, the golf, the clubhouse, the golf carts, like all of the things, the dining room, like all of those things, and they actually have one that exists is amazing. That's an amazing thing, especially I think it's also 1924. It's also in the 1920s that is something that existed. The other part is the current director of, again, Count Founder Girls, like taking on that initiative to move this forward and to bring this back to life after college. I don't know if it's her bachelor's or master's. I can't remember off the top of my head, but to do that, another sense, another point of inspiration that something old can become new. That's the other part that I'm also researching in addition. That's why I say up and coming, because whatever I think we're going to be creating, it could be a revitalization of something that already existed. Figuring out where the trademark, who was the ownership of that particular name. Like not everything we do here is going to be brand new. That's the other part that I kind of want to bring to the forefront. Not everything we will do is new. Some things we will be revitalizing. There's plenty of things that have existed that simply need a new place to live or to be brought back to the forefront. That's why I keep making posts about history. I'm looking for women that are very appreciative of history, and they care about it. They want to bring it forth. They want to know about it. They want to share it with others. We can't be in this space where I don't live in the space where everything old is bad. I don't live there. Everything old has a place, a time and place, and it needs to be remembered, if not brought back to the forefront for me. Like that's how I feel about it. Like I'm not to do anything new, because I didn't say that at all. We will absolutely be doing things that are new, but also in that same breath, in that same token, the other side of that is there are old things that could be new again for us. And that's a huge part of my research that I'm going to continue to bring to this channel and continue to bring to this space, is for you to know how many old things used to exist that could be beautiful once more. And again, going back to these women between the summer camps, which are coming back in full force, and it's a question of, depending on how long it's going to take them to find the funding to do buy the land and get the camp set up again. Where could we be useful in that in the next 5 to 10 years? Like these are projects that I see in my mind where we're attaching ourselves to. Even when I think about the going back to Shady, what is it? Shady Pines. What is that called again? What was the name for that? Let me see. Let me see. Oh my God. Shady Rest. I want to say, is it Shady Rest? Yeah, Shady Rest Country Club. I think about that. You start looking at the sponsorships. I'm like, a chapter of my sorority is a sponsor for this place, and the woman that's president is a member. It's just so wrong. It's like these are some of the incredible things that I see women that are in my age category, whether millennial or zennial or maybe Xer. She might be an Xer depending on her age. You can't really tell based off her picture. But it just gives you another moment of inspiration leading to the perspiration to make a place like this exist. And that's what I'm spending so much time doing. That's what I'm wasting energy doing, because it's just so important, so paramount for me. That's why I'm spending the time to do this. I'm probably going to cut this short to like 30 minutes. Mainly because I'm just trying to get used to being on live, getting used to being here, getting used to showing up, getting used to showing my face, getting used to being here. I'm trying I'm trying to put together a more cohesive live where what I'm saying makes sense. And I'm really struggling on with the visuals of being on TikTok. TikTok, you're literally gonna just see my face, whereas to YouTube, you will actually see the visuals of what's being said and what's going on. I think that's our big thing. But for me, this is just the beginning of the inspiration. I'll probably bring these women back out and give a more detailed presentation for an upload and just talk about their stories. And yeah, but I just want to kind of get this out here, just the beginning of the conversation, the beginning of these women, and just the beginning of that. Because it's much bigger than just a club. But it starts with women coming together, like we've seen with the women's club movement, but specifically the progressive era with Black women, right? Black women's clubs is where we see continued progress for Black folks. So for me, I'm very much in the space where if we really want to see that, we've got to see that. But I'm also not, it's not lost on me that a lot of the conversations Black women are having, it's the divide between the 92% and the 8%. If I'm being honest, I don't really care which side of the aisle you're on. If anything, I'm looking to scratch at the surface of the Black women who didn't vote at all. I really want to have a conversation with women like that because I would love to pick your brain on why you didn't vote. Did you already know who was going to win? Is that why you didn't vote yourself? Like those are the insightful things I want to see and I want to have conversations with. If I'm being honest, a group like this is really leaning more towards not really alternative. I don't want to say that because that's not the word I want to say here. It's more of we're on the outskirts. We're not going to be mainstream because mainstream clearly isn't working, or we would just all be there. We see the faults of what's currently exists, and we need to create something new for the continued progression of Black women and girls in general. I'm not in some fantasy about that. I don't live in that fantasy. That's not something I live in. I also don't live in this magical land of thinking. I don't live in what we wish the world is. I live in what the world is today to me, the realities, which is Black women are struggling. It's only going to get worse. And quite honestly, we're moving towards a depression. Don't I'm not even going to hold you. Currently in a recession, headed for a depression. I'm not going to hold you, babes. So if we know we're going to be moving in such treacherous times, we really have to move into a space where we have to look at what was happening. Remember, a lot of these clubs got started in the 20s. They still existed through the 30s, which was the Depression, and going into the 40s. Now, granted, most clubs fell apart in the 30s because of the Depression, which is where I'm taking my notes of where we don't fall into those pitfalls. Because if we're being honest, we are in the 20s again. Let's just keep that a buck. We're in the 20s right now. We're in 25, headed towards 26. We have a little window to get ourselves established and together where we won't be swallowed up come the 30s. If anything, we are really moving into the space where this next decade is about to be the struggle bus. This is going to be the period where they get people desperate enough to go to war. That's really like they gotta get people desperate enough to want to go do those things. And that's not my hunch. That's just looking at history. That's just looking at what has happened and looking at trends and all of those great things. So to know that we are basically in some Groundhog's Day, we're reliving something that's already happened is on one terrifying on one hand, but then on the other hand, whew, we can anticipate some things happening too. So I'm really excited about that. And that's kind of where this all comes from. I'm taking the time to put things together, to do the work, so that not only myself as an older woman can have us continue to have a space and hold space for us, but then also for the young girls coming behind us that will absolutely need a place to be. I'm taking the time, I'm doing the work to create that place for them. So thank you so much for joining me on this second live. This one will probably stay up just to kind of test it out, see how it looks. But yeah, so thank you so much for being with me. And we're going to do the little outro here. Let's see. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Feel free to click around and watch something else. But until then, I'll catch you in the next one. Or